And joining us is former Arkansas governor, former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. Governor, you were supposed to be here today, but the storm kept you in Florida. As you reacting to these kinds of disasters governing the state of Arkansas, what do you make of this?
Well, first of all, I want to commend Governor Rick Scott. I think he's been a terrific governor overall, but he really showed extraordinary leadership in getting ahead of the storm instead of just coming in afterwards and saying, oh boy, what a mess we have to clean up with. Now, there will be people who say, well, you know, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was really bad for the people who have been hit and will continue to be. But I thought he did a masterful job, especially, and let me commend a specific thing. He reminded people that during the storm, if you haven't gotten out of the way of it, don't call because they can't come get you. You're on your own. And I think that kind of candor was refreshing, but he also had staged all of the resources and assets in advance to be prepared for the very worst. And it was a great example of first-class leadership on the part of Rick Scott.
Governor, I want to get your take on this. A retired New Jersey police officer was interviewed on Headline News after saving a baby from a hot car. During the interview, the officer was wearing a Trump for President 2016 shirt. However, when the network reran the interview an hour later, they blurred the T-shirt out. This comes days after CNN took the word crooked out of a Trump tweet when they showed it on the air. What kind of media bias is this?
Well, I mean, it's an example of the fact that journalism is dead as we once knew it. It used to be that if you read a story written by a journalist, you didn't really know whether that journalist liked the person he was writing about or didn't. And I always said, the best journalists were the ones who, when I read the story about me, I couldn't tell whether he liked me or not. And when I read that, I said, that's a real journalist. I don't read many stories like that ever. There just aren't any. Today, the bias in the media, we've seen it this week. You just gave two examples from Headline News and CNN. We see it all the time with Facebook. You see it with the New York Times, the Washington Post, organizations that used to be respected in journalistic circles and now are nothing more than fronts for left-wing claptrap.
Now, Trump, he frequently criticizes the mainstream media, and he goes after individuals, he goes after whole networks, but Hillary Clinton has just as much disdain for the media. It has been 272 days, I think, since she held a press conference. And that doesn't seem to have any impact on her donations, though. She raised, both for her campaign and the party, $143 million in the month of August. And I know that her running mate on another network was called out on the fact that she's not giving press conferences.
Well, look, it would be easier to find Amelia Earhart than it would be to find Hillary Clinton in public these days. But she continues to bring in the money because the donors have something that they expect in return. Hillary is clearly open for business. That is, if you give money to Clinton's campaign, you know that if she's elected, you're going to get access, you're going to get favors, and we continue to see evidence of this, whether it's State Department emails, Clinton Foundation emails, the obvious connection between the people who gave and their access to meetings. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that she's getting an enormous amount of money. Donald Trump is not getting that amount of money because he's being funded by small donors. They don't expect to be named ambassador to the Court of St. James as a result of a $50 contribution.
But isn't that the way of politics, though, in general? That's why people give money to politicians, for access. It might not be the kind of access that you would giving tens of millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation, but it's certainly access, and that's the way of doing business if you're in Washington.
It's absolutely the way it goes. I always say the three magic words in politics, never forget these. They work 100% of the time. Follow the money. If you want to know what government is going to do, follow the money. Why is it that the Republicans in Congress have done no differently than the Democrats for the most part? Why is it that they've surrendered over everything from trade agreements to the Iranian deal? I'll tell you why. Follow the money. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump has been a refreshing, if not disruptive, candidate, is because he is not tied to the same donor class that has been running not just contributions, but has been actually running the government for the past several generations. And I really believe it's what Americans are most sick of. And when they think about it, beyond all the rhetoric and all the media and everything else, they're going to ask themselves, do they want a government that is fully funded by the very top elite of this country, or do they want a government that is responsible to we the people?
Governor Huckabee, this is Kirsten Haglund here. So what is his game plan then for the ad buys in the future in these swing states where she's really been hitting him very hard? She has a lot of money in fundraising for ads. What's Donald Trump's plan for the next month or two?
Well, here's what I hope he does, because if he runs the typical political ad, what I call the cookie cutter, deep voice announcer, slow motion black and white pictures, ominous threats if Hillary's elected, I think it just gets lost in the clutter. Nobody pays attention. I hate those ads. If he runs something that nobody expects, I would love to see him employ humor in his political ads. Self-depreciating humor, but humor. Do something that is fun to watch. It's the kind of commercial that even if you're not interested in the product, you can't take your eyes off of it. And if anybody has the ability to do that kind of spot, it's Donald Trump. If he does it, he cuts through the clutter. People pay attention to the ads, and frankly, that's far more important than how many ads you have. It's whether or not when they're on, if people even bother to turn their necks to see what it is.
Governor, it was great insight as always. Governor Huckabee, I wish you'd been here, but we'll take you via satellite. Thank you so much.
I'll be there soon.
Okay,
Thanks, Dagan.
Take care, Governor.